Welcome, everyone. We are delighted to have an incredibly talented actor and singer, Daniel James, one half of Yell with Paul Varney. We have him today, known for his success with the UK pop group Yell. Daniel has captivated audiences worldwide with hits like Instant Replay and Let's Go Around Again. As a multifaceted artist, Daniel's career spans across music, acting, and television presenting. This year, he kicks off 2025 a brand new South Bend single, Promises, as you see by his shirt, Promises, an upbeat track that tells the
Promises,
story.
promises I can't keep. Promises, promises
Promises,
make me
make
weak.
me weak.
Promises,
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 promises.
no more lies. I'm still standing tall. See, every time someone mentions the word, I have to burst into a couple of lines. Forgive me.
Oh yeah, every time I'm talking to someone and I hear something that is from like a song, I usually sing it. That's awesome, man. So Promises, Promises is an upbeat track that tells the story of one half of a couple who continuously make promises they never keep, leading their partner to realize they are better off standing tall on their own. Available for pre-order, which has already been, almost a
hmm
month now,
It's
January
out. It's out
17th.
now.
It's out now, and it
Yeah.
was released on January 24th. Promises, Promises is sure to be another hit. Let's dive into Daniel's fascinating journey and what's next for this versatile artist. Hello, Daniel James. How are you?
Chris, I'm very well. You've actually joined me, and the sun is shining in the UK for the first time in 2025. We're throwing street parties because we've had rain, thunder, freezing fog, freezing cold, minus goodness knows what. I've been going to bed like an Eskimo. I've woken up in the middle of the night and I've had Eskimos at the bottom of my bed saying, "We're going home, it's too cold." Seriously, I had a seal pop up the other morning, and I said, "There's no fish." He went, "No." He said, "It's too cold for the fish here." So we're celebrating today. I've actually got the T-shirt on because it's not minus, -1 or -2. It's amazing. And my single at the moment, my single is number 17 in the Heritage chart. By then, hopefully, it'll be top three. And if any of your viewers want to vote for Promises, Runnin and Runnin, www.heritagechart.co.uk. Just click on there and click on vote now, scroll down, and as soon as you see Promises in brackets, Runnin and Runnin, give it a vote. That would be fantastic.
Is a QR code, does that lead to it as well?
Let me give you this, sir. Can you
Yep.
see?
Yep.
A close
Everyone
up
just
on the
go
old.
up closer so that people can literally use their phone
Come
to.
closer
Okay, there
and
you go. So people, you
listen.
can scan the QR code and it'll lead you there. But I will also
That'll take
link
you to my
link it in the
website.
description and everything.
It would be great to keep on everyone's toes because I'm up against Lenny Kravitz, Fairground Attraction, Tina Turner. She's got a re-release out. So there are big stars. Coldplay have just been number one. So I'm competing with the big fish, and I need as much support as possible. This will take you to the website, and there's a little button on the website that says "Vote for Promises." So just click on that. And of course, on my website, you've got all my past releases, all the Yell stuff, some of my acting credits and my presenting credits. But in the States, you call it hosting, don't you?
We're not in the States. I'm in Canada.
I
Canada.
beg your
Okay.
pardon, Canada. Canada and forgive
Yeah.
me, Canada and America. Wait, you know what? I've just done one for Ohio about half an hour ago. They got up at God knows what, so my head is still stuck in down by the old hi ho. So forgive me, Canada and the Maple Leaves. When I lived in LA, can I just tell you a little thing? When I lived in LA, my favorite cookies, when I'd really worked hard and been to an audition and or done a really nice job, I used to treat myself to maple creams, these gorgeous cookies. They're my favorite. So there you go. I doff my cap to the maple cream of Canada.
Oh, that's a big cup. Wow. That's like three,
It, it,
four cups in one.
yeah, this is tea. And I
Oh,
haven't this. You know what's really strange? Guess it.
the
Oh, hang on a
Yorkshire
minute.
tea? Yorkshire?
There you go. Your dialect is perfect. How
Yorkshire?
on earth you how on earth you learned that? That most Canadians would say Shire, but you're very good. You've said Yorkshire. I think a lot of singers have a good ear. You have a musical ear. You can pick up the beat. You can pick up a note. So obviously you pick up the notes in the dialect. So perfect. Well done, you. Pat yourself on the back.
Um, I'm very interested in knowing that. Can you go back to the beginning? What kind of family life did you have, and why did you decide music?
Um, I come from a very working class family in the northeast of England. Now there's a dialect. Let me give you an example. Why, hello, Ped. How you doing? I hope you're feeling well today. Like that's the accent, my native accent, or a softer version of that, probably from the northeast of England. My granddad worked in the shipyards on the River Wear in Sunderland, and at the time it was one of the biggest shipbuilding yards in the world. And I mean, he'd get up at 6 in the morning and be working on very cold steel, on the river. That was one side of the family, and that was in Sunderland. My dad was from Hartlepool, and my dad was in the Navy. My mum was in the Navy. They were both in the Navy, but they didn't meet. Well, they met when they were both in the Navy, but they didn't meet at a dockyard or anything. Um, and as I say, very honest to good working class people. My dad's father was a steel worker, and he would work in the furnace where they would roll the steel. So the steam was ferocious.
Mm.
And he was stick thin. He was a big, tall man. And when he left work in the early evening, he was so dehydrated. And of course, in those days, people didn't run around with bottles of water like we do nowadays. Water was an expensive commodity. He would go into the pub near the steelworks, and because he was so dehydrated, he could drink 7 pints and be as sober as a judge. He didn't have a drinking problem. He would go home, everything was fine, and he was
Wow.
rehydrated. I know. However, when he'd been in the war and he got really bad trench foot, and he'd been injured in the war from the trenches, and he died young, my granddad.
Ooh,
And unfortunately, after he died, he left what, 5 or 6 children, my dad and his brothers and sisters. Of course, in those days, there was no social security. So as soon as he died, the family were poor overnight. And
wow.
my father as a little boy, and I mean a little boy, suddenly went from having nice clothes to having no shoes. And
Mm.
he would walk. We lived by the seaside, a place in the northeast of England, and he would walk from his house all the way to the seafront, about a mile, and he would go onto the rocks, a place called Long Scar Rocks, and he found a technique of picking crabs, big, good sized crabs, and he would eat the crab meat, and that was how he sustained himself in his very young years. And he lived until he was nearly 90. So it's amazing what every morning going out before school, picking crabs in your bare
Mm.
feet with a coat hanger or a stick. So he learned a lot of life skills as a very young boy. Joined the Navy because it was 3 square meals a day. Actually lied about his age to join the Navy,
Really?
and yeah, they sent him off to initial training. He was tall like me, he was a nice looking man, my dad, and he did the basic training, and then they put him on a ship. And of course, in those days, nobody knew where they were going, the Official Secrets Act. And he got on the boat, and when he woke up a few days later, Tabletop Mountain was there, South America. And that's like a boy who lied about his age. He was probably 16 or something. Went
Wow.
from walking to the beach, picking crabs in his bare feet, to Tabletop Mountain and fighting for his country. So that was my dad. And my mum, she started work at 14, learned to be a French polisher. And when the war came, she was on the roof, and she was what was called a fire watcher when she was
Oh,
14. And
huh.
when the bombs would drop, she would be on the roof, and
Mm.
they would write down who was flying over, and they would collect shrapnel. And the weirdest thing is, my mum was in Sunderland on a roof on the River Wear. My dad was in Hartlepool on a roof as a fire watcher before he joined the war, and neither of them knew each other, and they were both doing the same thing. So I grew up in a working class family. My mum had a beautiful voice, but we never sung in the house. My dad, he didn't openly discourage it, but it wasn't encouraged. So I never sung in the house. I only sung at school. My first performance was in the school nativity play. I was probably about 10, and I was chosen to play Joseph. No, yes, Joseph, the father of Jesus. Doesn't really have a lot to do. I mean, I stood
Mm.
around with the staff, but the good thing is the teacher, I don't know how she discovered it. It must have been when we were singing hymns or something. She realized I had a decent voice. This teacher had me sing um, "Oh Holy Night"
Oh
in the
wow.
school nativity play, and it has a really high note. And I can distinctly remember. I'm trying to get this charger in. I can distinctly remember when I hit the high note, everybody went, "Oh," and that was the moment I realized I like doing that.
Exactly.
So
So you're a
basically,
tenor.
that was
Mhm.
so
Go
so
ahead.
basically, I started singing at school,
Yep.
and that was the only place that I could sing. It was not encouraged at home. My dad, I don't know why, when music programs would come on the TV, my dad couldn't stand them, and I
Really?
would be constantly battling with my dad, saying, "Please let me watch this, please let me watch that," and it was a constant battle. So I tended to sing in secret, and many people would wish I still did.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's
So,
wow.
so yeah,
So
so I kept
oh,
it secret, you know.
hmm so knowing you're a tenor, did you ever think that you'd want to follow opera or become like a world-renowned tenor and sing with opera greats?
I really wasn't exposed to much of that kind of music when I was young, and I think I wanted to be you know, I wanted to write songs and be a pop singer. That was what grabbed me. And I never really wanted to do. I know this sounds strange. I had an agent for a long while that always tried to encourage me to do musical theatre, and I never wanted to do it. It's strange, isn't it? You'd think that I would want to do musical theatre. And when I was younger, they always wanted me to do "Bring Him Home."
Comme Les Miserables. Yeah,
Yeah,
love
they
it.
because if I didn't shave, I would look like Marius or whatever. And I was constantly being badgered by my agent. But I know it really sounds strange, but when I was little, I saw the movie Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. And I just thought it was weird that people were walking down the road, chatting away, and then would suddenly go, "Oh." I just couldn't work out the reality. I know it's strange, and there's lots of musical theatre people probably watching, thinking, "How dare you?" Honestly, I'm not. I just couldn't connect the dots. So I've probably done myself out of a really great West End career because I probably could have been in Les Mis and Evita and lots of other things. So
That's
I
interesting.
probably shot myself in the foot.
That's probably interesting, Daniel. I understand what you're talking about. If I had taken a left turn in my life, then a right turn, my life could have turned out differently. I'm. I was also singing. You talking about "Oh Holy Night"? I was singing "Oh Holy Night" at one of our venues, big venues here. It's like 10, 15 minutes from me, and I sang "Oh Holy Night" in front of so many people, and I just enjoy singing "Oh Holy Night." I'm a little better than that, but
Yeah,
I can do I can
yeah,
do
yeah.
I can do falsetto and I can do low baritone like this. So, but I enjoy singing. I'm more. I'm kind of thinking. So during that time when you could have done musical theater, but you wanted to be a pop singer. How did Jeff Shegwin, your manager, get in touch with you, and how did you meet Paul Varney to become Yell in 1989?
Basically, it was 88. I was presenting a TV series in the UK on the BBC called But First This. And it went out every morning between 9 and 11 live, completely live. That's why when things go wrong, you just carry on. Like when my phone went down the pan there. Um, People at home were probably thinking, what's that guy doing with the phone? Anyway, so I was presenting a TV series, and Jeff was what was called a record plugger. And in those days, a plugger would go into the BBC or another TV station or a radio station with a record to try and get it on the show. And I'd seen Jeff come and go for all the whole of the summer. Hi, Jeff, how are you? Whatever. And then on this Friday afternoon, I was going down the escalator at Shepherd's Bush station in London. He was going up the escalator, and we kind of got to the middle. It was a really old fashioned wooden escalator, really long. And we saw each other coming, and Jeff's really broad Liverpool, and he went, "Hey, g'day, Daniel, how are you doing, mate?" And he said, "What do you do?" And he said, "What do you do?" I said, "I've just finished the show." And he went, "Oh, who have you got on next week?" And I said, "Nobody." I said, "It's finished. The series has just ended." And he went, "What are you going to do next?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to go back to writing songs." And he went, "Hey, mate, I didn't know you wrote songs." And I went, "Yeah." He said, "Come and see me." He said, "My office is called Nomis." And it was literally in between Shepherd's Bush and Olympia, where they do lots of big exhibitions. And he was in a building, this fabulous 4-story, 5-story building. But in the basement and in the ground floor, there were the most amazing rehearsal studios. The Who, all the big groups of the day rehearsed in there. It was amazing. So when you went in, there were in the canteen, there was pictures of every star you have ever known in your life. Anyway, we had a meeting and I played him my stuff, and he went, "Daniel, this is great." He said, "The thing is, there's a plethora," and plethora of young singers like you at the moment. He said, "Why don't we put a group together or something?" So he introduced me to another guy, and we got on okay. And I spent the next 4 years working with him. And in the first 6 months, I'd practically wrote an album's worth of material. And I would go every day, turn up with my book. And I'm the kind of guy that if I'm cycling or swimming or running or walking, I get a tune and some lyrics in my head. So in those days you couldn't sing them into a phone. So I'd be running around with a dictaphone or a tape machine, an old fashioned one. And basically in the first year wrote a whole album's worth of material. And Jeff said, "We need to get you on the road." So we had a battered old car and we would go to Birmingham, and we'd do like a gig at 9 o'clock in a bar, 11 o'clock somewhere 20 miles away, 1 o'clock in the morning somewhere else. And we basically, for about 18 months, just built up, we learned our craft. We got to know each other. We learned what songs worked. We learned what worked on stage. I ducked when beer glasses were thrown at me or pies. Well, I'd catch the pies and eat them because I was so hungry. And after about another year, Jeff said, "Great, we need to get you a younger fan base now." So we started something. We were the first band to do something called the Lunch Club.
Mm.
And we would go into schools at lunchtime. Loads of bands have done it since. And after the kids had had their lunch, uh, it would either be in the gym, the school hall, or the dining hall. And we would turn up, and after they'd had their lunch, we would surprise them and run on and do, several songs. And the kids would be like, "Wow." Because, they'd probably just done double maths or double geography and had their lunch. And then they were going to go to double history or something. So to have like two young guys that weren't that much older than them in the dining hall just after they'd had lunch, they were knocked out by it. And at the beginning, we'd start with a couple of songs and they'd be sitting in their seats and they'd be doing this and tapping their feet and looking at the teachers thinking, "Can we get up? Can we get?" And the teachers would be like, and then eventually, by the time the fourth song was on, they were like, "Yeah," they were really into it, and it was great. And the best part, so we then built up a huge fan base in the evening from adults who liked the songs, and a young fan base from a kind of slightly different material during the day. The thing was, what I loved most about that was that we were starving. We were two thin whippersnappers running all over the country. And when we arrived at the schools, the dinner ladies would say, "Oh, boys, you look ever so thin, boys. I tell you what, after you've done your little gig, we'll put some dinner aside for you, boys." Do you know what? After we had the gig, the kids would go back to the classes. We'd stay in the dining hall, and the dinner ladies would come out and go, "Oh, boys, you look so thin." And they'd have big plates of veg and gravy and pies and cakes, and it was mince and dumplings and all the old-fashioned stuff that lined your pipes and lagged your pipes because it's cold and damp and horrible over here. So we're everywhere in the country. And then they come with these desserts, chocolate pudding and pink custard or apple pie, and so they kept us going, those lunch clubs, because we were like two whippersnappers. And then eventually we built the fan base up, and Jeff said, "Right, you need to do a showcase." So we did a showcase for lots of record companies, and there were two record companies interested. One was CBS, who then became Sony, and one was Fanfare Records. And Fanfare Records was run by a man, you've probably not heard of him, Simon Cowell. Does that ring any bells?
That's
Never heard
funny.
of the man. Yeah. Well, anyway, so basically, they both wanted to sign us. Well, I was a singer-songwriter. I wanted to sign to CBS. You know, they had great bands. They had George Michael, they had Wham, they had, proper bands that played and sung. And of course, Simon loved cover versions. I mean, the man was obsessed with cover versions and obsessed with Stock Aitken Waterman. He was obsessed. He used to sleep with the Guinness Book of Hit Singles under his pillow. I mean, I'm sure he
Mm,
had other things under the pillow as well, but the only thing I spotted was the Guinness Book of Hit Singles.
that's not
But
right. You can't make fun of me.
hello, darling, it's Simon here. So basically, so we signed with Simon, and the thing about Simon is he's a great businessman and he's a great marketer. That's Simon's speciality.
Does he have a good
But
character and personality, or is he the man behind the mic, or in real life?
uh, I think Simon is a businessman and a marketing man, and he will
Oh,
sit and he will make those kind of shrewd decisions based on money, because obviously he's a businessman.
so he's not
Artistic.
really. He's not really. Is he kind of rude in person, or is he actually nice as well in person?
Oh, I've never seen. I mean, Simon is a very, very polite man, very well brought up. His father worked at EMI Records, and he was a very well-spoken,
Mm,
hated any bad manners, Simon. But
mm.
the thing about Simon is, I would turn up with, we'd go in there and we'd have, I'd written a song called "Give Me a Little More Time." I'd written a song called "Do You Know What You Do to Me." I'd written an upbeat, rocky song called "I Get the Feeling About Ya." And I would take all these songs in that were going to be on the album, and I'd say, how about this as a single? How about this as a single? And we would butt heads constantly because he just said, darling, we need a cover version. He had an act in England called Sunita, who did, she covered Right Back Where We Started From, the old Maxine Nightingale song. And
Yeah.
so he either wanted us to be with Stock Aitken Waterman or he wanted us to do covers. And I never wanted to do that. So
Mm.
we butted heads constantly. But in the end, we went off, we were exhausted. So we went to Ibiza, my partner and I in the group. And one night, about 2 in the morning, we were in a chill out lounge in Ibiza and the dance floor was dead as a dodo. And then suddenly you heard 10, 9, 8. You set my lips on fire. The dance floor was chocker. Blokes, guys, women, everybody loved that song. And I turned to my partner in the group and I said, do you know what? If Simon wants us to do a cover, look on the dance floor. Guys love it. Girls love it. It's not cheesy. It's credible. There's a great bass line. So we flew back to England at the end of the holiday. And of course, two young guys, neat haircuts, suntan, shorts, t-shirt, walked into Simon's office thinking we were the bee's knees. And of course, he's sitting at his desk with his feet up, the stacked heels, the high-waisted trousers. And I looked at him and I thought, we've just come back from Ibiza and you're browner than we are. Bless him, he looked like a mahogany table in an antique shop. We thought we were fabulous, and he had a better tan than us. Anyway, I said, Simon, I said, we've cracked it. I said, we are finally going to agree on something. I've found the song. We've got the song. And he said, darling, what have you got? And he swung his legs round off the table. And in that motion, he dropped this book on the floor. And I politely went to pick it up. And it was the Guinness Book of Hit Singles. And I said, Simon, the song that everybody loves. It was a hit in 1978. I said, it's 2 decades later. We're going to have a whole new audience. Instant replay, Dan Hartman. And he got this
Wow.
little wry smile on his face. And he said, open the book. And I picked the book up and he'd folded the corner over. And I opened it and it said it on the corner. He'd opened it right on Instant Replay by Dan Hartman.
Wow.
And I thought, right, we've butted heads, in a business-like way for the last goodness knows how long. I'm going to relent because this is fate. This is meant to be. So we are straight in the studio. We needed to find a producer at that point, and we decided on a guy called Nigel Wright, who'd been keyboard and producer for a band called Shack Attack that were really big in the late 70s and 80s. Really great jazz fusion, band. They're
Mm.
still going now. And Nigel, I think, had a bit of a quiet period, and he turned up at the record company office at that time in North London. in the most amazing vintage car, like an American, one of those Cadillac things. Well, Simon had a Porsche in the car park, because Simon loved Porsches. Well, suddenly the car arrived. It was like two stags butting heads. It was the battle of the who's got the biggest car, Anyway, after they got over that little dilemma, we sat in the boardroom, we had a chat, and Nigel was up for the job. So within a couple of weeks, we were in the studio, we did the vocals for Instant Replay. But the funniest thing is, Simon was obsessed, as I say, with Stock Aitken Waterman. And they at the time had a band called Big Fun, who'd been put together. They didn't write songs. They seemed to do a lot of cover versions, or they did Stock Aitken Waterman songs, but they sang them in falsetto. And Simon, as I say, was obsessed. So we went in the studio, and with Nigel, who's a real creddy, proper musician, proper producer, really talented man. And we put the vocal down. You set my lips on fire. Great. Simon arrived as usual about 11:30. We'd been in there since 10 o'clock. And he came in, and Nigel played what we had of the track. And Simon, we were in the vocal booth at the time. And Simon, we looked through the glass, and he had a face like thunder. And I thought, oh, here we go. He's going to hate it. He's not going to want us. He's going to drop us. And after about 10 seconds, he said, darling, he said, I've got an idea. And he gestured for us to go in. So we walked in, and I thought, oh, I was dreading what he was going to say. And he said, I want you to go back in the booth and sing it falsetto. Well, you could have knocked me down with a feather. The last thing I want to do is become a copy of another band that are already out singing falsetto.
Bee Gees.
Well, no. The Bee Gees were multi-talented singer-songwriters who went to falsetto in the late 70s. Before that, New York Mining Disaster and all of that, they weren't falsetto. They did that for Saturday Night Fever and then continued. I'm talking about this group with Stock Aitken Waterman called Big Fun, who sung in falsetto. And I just couldn't see myself for the next 5 years going on stage going, you set my lips on fire. I've got to, I mean, it would have killed me. Only credibility that I might have had gone from there to nothing. And I thought, what am I going to do? Now, bear in mind, we're talking about a man with a very strong personality, Simon Cowell. And as I said earlier, a very shrewd businessman. And he thought this was going to make him lots of money. But I knew that copying another band's style, this Stock Aitken, was not going to work. And it wasn't original, and it wasn't me. So as we walked in the vocal booth, I said to my partner in the group, I said, we're going to have to mess this up. We're going to have to really mess this up, because otherwise we're stuck with this for the next 5 years. And I would have hated it. So 10, we start, we're standing in there, 10, 9, 8, da 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 da, and the first line comes up, which is me. Well, it came up, and I looked at my partner, and I thought, right, go for it. I girded my loins, and I went, you set my lips on fire. You want the key to my heart. You've got a special way to move me. Don't stop now. Let's do it again. Simon's face could have curdled milk. And then my partner started on the second verse. You got me dancing through the moonlight. We made the biggest hash job you could. And Nigel stopped, and there was a silence after 2 verses and a chorus. It's time we play. I mean, there were cats waiting at the door, howling, So suddenly everything stopped. Simon banged on the desk, and he did the gesture again. Boys, come in here, boys. So we thought, here we go. We're going to be fired. He's going to drop us. And we sat down, total silence. I mean, like, it went on for a minute, and a minute is a blooming long time. And we looked at him, and we looked at each other, and we thought, well, come on, just say it. And he said, okay, boys, we'll have it your way. So we went back in the studio. You set my lips on fire. And we did it. And we then had it remixed. And before we know it, we were in the charts. We're flying all over the world. We did 30 magazine covers for the first record, magazine
Nice.
covers, interviews. We were on the big TV show in the UK called Top of the Pops several times. We were on breakfast television, lunchtime television, nighttime television. We flew the world. We didn't get released in the States, but we flew over to the States to record with a guy called Michael J, who at the time was producing a talented lady called Martika, who had a hit
Oh
with Toy
yeah,
Soldiers.
Tin
And
Soldiers. Yeah.
I feel the earth move under my. She covered that. So we flew over, stayed at the Roosevelt Hotel on Hollywood Boulevard, went to the Grammys, and recorded with Michael J. But the thing about it was, we recorded this song that's on the album. By the way, the album has been released, the Yell album, Let's Go. It's got all the hits on, plus all the songs I wrote.
Hmm.
But it's also got a song on it called One Touch Too Much, which Michael J wrote. And we flew to Hollywood to record. But the worst thing
Wow.
about it was Michael did a great job. But when we flew back to England, the two people running the record company, Simon and another guy, insisted that it was remixed. And where it goes, one touch too much, they insisted it went one touch too much. Oh,
Oh.
God almighty. So we didn't do the falsetto, but we did get lumbered with one touch, two. I mean, please. I was ducking the tomatoes when I was singing it, you know? So you can see that there was always a clash of taste because as I say, I was writing songs and I wanted to do it. But he was a great businessman, Simon. I mean, for instance, there's a big TV show in the UK, a soap called Coronation Street,
Hmm. We
and
have
it
it here
used to be
too.
on, yeah.
Yeah.
And one day, instant replay was flying up the charts, and we were all over. I mean, we were everywhere. Germany, we'd go to like Germany, Holland, and France in the same day. It was like everywhere. We were like top of the charts in Japan. And I remember flying home, and I got indoors, and I quickly switched the TV on. We were living like, you get in, you dump your stuff, you fall into bed, you get up the next day, and you go. There was no for the 3 or 4 years. It was just like mayhem, which was amazing. But so you didn't really get to watch much TV or see your friends, and which was a shame. And I quickly turned the TV on, and Coronation Street was on, and they were in the cafe at the time, and somebody ordered a balm cake, and he went, "Can I have a balm cake, Gail, please?" And he said, "Have you got some change?" And he walked over to the jukebox in the cafe, put some money in, and suddenly you heard 10, 9. You set my lips on fire. Simon knew somebody that worked behind the scenes at Coronation Street, and he got the track placed in the show, the biggest show on TV. So you've got to give him credit. He was a very shrewd businessman, but I don't think at the time his musical taste was very broad. The genres. Anyway, so we went on, let's go around again. One thing leads to another, toured the world, had the most amazing time, and then it ended like that overnight.
Hmm.
The highs are incredibly high in the music business, but
Wow.
the lows can be incredibly low. And what I would say
Yeah.
to anybody watching who's got a son, a daughter, or they're a budding musician themselves, always get a good lawyer so that your contract is watertight. And if their record company don't tell you to get a lawyer, that's very suspicious. I got a good lawyer. We had a good percentage. But two, when you're touring around, try and keep in touch with your friends and family, because when all the madness and mayhem is going on, you need people around you to keep you grounded. Because Robbie Williams has a film out at the moment, and there's a guy in the UK called Louis Theroux, and he's done a documentary called Boy Bands Forever. And he's talked to a lot of boys that were in bands in the UK and around the world in the 80s and 90s. Sadly, he missed me out, which is a shame because I could have made his hair curl with the stories I have, but I'm going to put them in a book. Um, anyway, what people don't realize, yes, it's incredible being in a group. It's incredible flying all over the world because my granddad worked on a shipyard in the cold steel. It was freezing. I'm not,
Wow.
I'm not comparing this to people getting up on a morning grafting crack of dawn in the cold. What I'm saying is, you can have the most amazing time. But when you turn up on television and you're smiling and it's all wonderful, people don't know the pressures you're under behind the scenes. And quite often, bands are forced into doing things that they would never want to do. Like, for instance, a small thing like the falsetto thing. Thankfully, we managed to stop that. But there were lots of other things that happened that we had no control over. And sometimes when you sign a contract, you lose a lot of control and you end up going down roads and doing things that make you feel quite uncomfortable. And it puts pressure on the group. It causes a lot of drama and it can make people very ill. And there have been a lot of people who've come out of groups, and this documentary will testify it, who were shadows of the former selves. When my group ended, I didn't even know it had ended. I
Mm.
had fans, outside my door every day, lovely, and thankfully a lot of them are still in touch. But I rolled my window up one morning. We'd been in the studio the previous day recording an album track with a guy called Colin Thurston, who produced all the early stuff for Duran Duran. Really great guy, Colin Thurston. If you look at Duran's early stuff. So we were working with Colin Thurston at Livingston Studios in North London on one of the songs, one of our songs, and got up the next day and I pushed my window up and leaned out. I'm on the top floor, and I said, "Morning," and they said, "Have you seen the papers?" And I said, "No. Why?" Anyway, 2 minutes later, one of them shoved a paper through my door. I let them in, and they just pushed it through the door, and it was a tabloid. And I opened it, and it said, "Yell dumped, yell down the dumper," or something to that effect.
Wow.
I had no idea, and I genuinely had no idea. This was my group that I'd worked on for years, that my heart and soul in, that I'd given everything to. And I spent 48 hours trying to contact the record company. Nobody spoke to me. Nobody
Mhm.
answered the phone. And
Whoa.
I see lots of people who say, "Oh God, when my band finished, or when the record company dumped me, I was on the bottom, and Elton John saved me." I wish I'd known bloody Elton John. I wish I'd had his phone number to save me, because I lost my home. I lost the home I was going to buy my parents. My
Oh no.
myself my self-esteem was stripped away. My dignity. I was humiliated. I
Oh
mean, I was
wow.
called into the office. I felt. I mean, I was treated abysmally. And of course, in the music business, you don't have a HR department. You don't have somebody that you can go to, a line manager. You don't have anybody that you can go to and pour your heart out and can negotiate, can discuss, can sort things out. I was on my own, sitting in my apartment. And of course, my mum and dad, lovely working class people, had no experience of the music business. They used to turn up at my apartment and the fans would be outside. My mum and dad, they were gobsmacked. I mean, I was a little boy. They couldn't believe I had people sleeping out, but they had
Mm.
no experience of the music business. And I ended up chasing my tail, and I ended up having a nervous breakdown. I lost everything. I was a broken man, and there
Oh
was nobody
no.
there to help me, and nobody cared to help me that I'd
Oh
been
man.
involved in. And that's why I say to people, be very careful to keep the people around you. Be very careful what you sign, and also, as I say, quite a lot of people, when they watch bands and groups, if they suddenly falter and the group are not having as much success as they can, just remember there's stuff probably going on behind the scenes that you don't know about, conflict, heartbreak, and just handle it with care. There's a lot more care nowadays, but then I look at One Direction and I look at Liam Payne.
Yeah.
Poor Liam Payne. They were much bigger than us. They were huge compared to us.
Didn't last
They
very long, and then Harry Styles and Liam died recently.
Well, they were signed to Simon, and I think we were Simon's guinea pig. He practiced on us, bless him. And
Wow.
and I think, but then you think to yourself, well, 30 years later, a tragedy's happened with One Direction. And I think sometimes when you watch bands on TV, try and look behind the eyes and see what's going on, because quite often they turn up and the presenter says, "Hey," and they go, "Yeah, yeah, everything's great," but underneath there's quite often things going on that you will never know about. And as soon as that light's off on the camera, they have to deal with stuff where they're outvoted, where sometimes they're being bullied, where their confidence is being tipped. I can't tell you some of the things that were said to me to try and strip me of my confidence. I was a broken man and I had a breakdown. And it's all
Oh,
going to be in
wow.
the book. It's all going to be in the book. But let's get this in perspective. I had an amazing time that I wouldn't have missed for the years. I had some amazing opportunities. I'm grateful to every DJ that played as every TV producer and presenter and every fan. And here I am back. And you know why the only reason I'm back? Lockdown. The hated lockdowns that people despised. Well, apart from the
Mhm.
people that made money
It
out of
was
people
terrible
not.
in the UK when they locked everything down, yeah.
Do you know what? I was on my own. All my family were up north. And I used to go for walks every day. I would watch the news at 5 p.m. and our prime minister would do a press conference, with all this stuff. And they would show film of old people in care homes putting their hands up against the glass door, and their daughters or sons would have to do that. They couldn't hug them, they couldn't hold them. They were sitting in chairs numb, they were lost. Children weren't allowed to go out to play. And one day I watched it and I was really moved. And I walked all the way from my apartment, miles, all the way up to Muswell Hill, all the way up to Alexander Palace, miles. And like I said to you earlier, I get the rhythm of when I'm walking or I'm cycling. And I was walking really quickly. And suddenly this thing came in my head, in my heart, in my soul. I feel it in my bones every night, every day. I lie awake and say, they've got to let us go now. They've got to let us know now. They've got to set our spirits free. When the world turns its head, there are people around us with their hearts in their mouths, not knowing the right way they should turn,
Wow.
watching hair turning grey, seeing children turn into adults, days rolling away, falling apart at the seams. I turned round. Now, I hadn't written a song in 30 years. I was a broken man when I last wrote a song. When I had that nervous breakdown, when I finally pulled enough confidence together, I got on a plane. I went to New York and I lived in New York. And I pulled myself, I did a play off Broadway. But it took me ages. Nobody knew me in New York. There was nobody having a dig at me, nobody tearing me apart. But I was a broken man when I got there. And I gently padded round New York. Little did I know I was healing.
I don't
Anyway,
I don't understand, but what happened to Paul Varney? How come you didn't cling on to him and you both what happened to
he
him? What
didn't. He's left. Well, he went on to do his own thing with Stock Aitken Waterman.
and he didn't even say, "How are you doing, Daniel?" He didn't even care?
That was how it ended. I'm not going to
Mm,
comment on that, but I'm just stating a fact. That's
okay.
what happened, and I have since been, emailed him in recent years because I suggested that y'all get back together. Because in the UK there are these big rewind tours and rock
Yeah.
90s and pop this, where all the groups get together. And I wrote and said, "Do you fancy doing it?" But he said he's had his 15 minutes of fame and he's happy being behind the scenes. So you have to respect that, you know and I'm not criticizing him for that. But um, when I had the breakdown, I was totally on my own, and I went to the States after a while,
That's
and that's
sad.
how I
So sorry
slowly
about that,
that
man.
that's how I slowly healed. I walked New York, I walked Manhattan, and cried but the good thing was nobody knew who I was. I
Oh
had a
my
couple of
god.
friends there. I made lots of more friends. That's how bad it was. I literally was a broken man. Um, Came back to England and I threw myself into my acting career because I never thought I was told I was old, ugly, and untalented
Oh
and
my
would
god.
never sing again.
No wonder
So
people are telling me music industry is pile of beep.
that stayed with me, and that was the tipping point for the breakdown. Now, when I came back from New York, I went back into acting. I did Coronation Street,
Mhm.
funny enough. I did EastEnders. I did Last Tango in
Nice.
Halifax. Last Tango in Halifax with Sarah Lancashire, who's a huge star, fabulous actress. I did Bad Girls, which was a prison series here. Trying to think, a Casualty, which is like ER, like a medical series. So I threw myself into all of that because although the acting world you do get judged, it wasn't like the singing world. I wasn't being hit over the head all the time telling me I was crap. Anyway, got on with the acting career, and then I went to LA and worked in LA. Did a series, an internet series called Apartment for Six. I did something in a series called Passions for NBC, and I loved LA. I loved it, and I worked there, and it was a dream. And then my mum and dad got ill,
Mm.
and I came home, and I dropped the industry. I put it on the side, and I became my mum's carer for 10 years. Wouldn't have missed it for the world. 10
Yeah.
years, we had the most amazing time. And I looked after her 24/7. And after 10 years, it was an honor. But she woke up one morning, and I'll never forget the morning. She put her hand on mine and she said, "You're my best pal." And I thought, oh, she's lost the plot. And I said, "No, I'm your son, mum." She went, "I know that." She said, "But you've been more than a son. You've been my best pal." She said,
Kind.
I'll never forget what you've done for me." She said, "But you shouldn't be doing it." And because she used to say to me, "Why aren't you on that stage? Why aren't you on TV? Don't waste your life on me. Don't, you're wasting you should be doing your career." Because she knew previously, years ahead, how hard I'd worked. And it broke her. It broke my parents when I was dumped like that. And she used to get angry and say, "You should be doing this." And I'd say, "No, no, no. I'm here." And you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. When I was my mum's carer, American Idol was on, Britain's Got Talent was on, Britain Pop Idol in the UK. I could watch them in a detached way. I watched them as a viewer, as a punter. It's really strange. It's like I had the pop industry beaten out of me. And I actually watched those programs and as like a viewer. I never once thought that could be me. Never. So anyway, my mum sadly passed away, and I was totally lost at that point because I thought, God, who am I? I've been a carer
Gee.
for 10 years. I don't know who I am. Anyway, we would been in the northeast of England because I'd taken her home to die at home, and I was just lost. I didn't know who I was. Anyway, eventually, I came back to London and picked my feet up, and then suddenly lockdown happened. And again, I was separated from everybody. And that's when I started to go out on these walks, which I mentioned about 10 minutes ago. And this day, I came up with this song in my head. And that's what I meant by it was the first song in 30 years. I never wanted to write songs. I never wanted to sing. Just the thought of singing made me panic, have panic attacks. But I ran back from Alexander Palace, sweating buckets, got indoors. And of course, I had a phone, sang it into the phone. Watched the telly, went to bed, forgot about it. The next day, got up, never thought anything about it. And about midday, I picked my phone up and I went, "Oh my God." So I played it to me, and it's just me singing in the phone, as the world turns its head, there are people around me with their hearts. And I listened to it and I thought, wow. Anyway, the next couple of months, I went out for walks because obviously lockdown went on and on and on. So I just had lots of walks and I wrote loads of songs. Wrote loads of songs. I couldn't believe it. They were pouring out to me. You know, I was amazed at myself. And then eventually a friend of mine said, "Well, are you going to do anything with these songs?" And I said, I can't. And they said, "You've got to do something. Don't be a fool." And I can't do it. Anyway, eventually I booked a little demo studio with an engineer and a musician, a keyboard player. And I went in, we laid some tracks down. But then the day came for me to do the vocal. And I'm standing with the cans, the headphones on in the studio. I didn't know whether I could do it. So the music came on and I did it. I sang, as the world turns its head, there are people around me with their hearts. And I sang, and at the end of the first verse, I asked him to stop. And he went, "No, don't give up now. It's sounding great." Because usually when you sing it for the first time, it's a bit rusty. But I'd been singing around the house. But the thought of going in the studio, I thought, I can't because the judgment, being told I was old, ugly, and bear in mind, I was a lot older by then. So I probably was old, ugly, and maybe untalented by then. So I got him to play it back. And I heard it and I thought, you idiot, what have you done? You've wasted 30 years. You've hidden, you've hidden, you've hidden, you've hidden what you could do, all because those BASTARDs did what they did to you. You've hidden. So, anyway, I carried on. I recorded lots of songs, and then there's a guy in the UK called Mike Reed who runs the Heritage Chart. He put the Heritage Chart together during lockdown because he knew he was a DJ for BBC Radio 1. He was Top of the Pops. He was a huge big star. He's also a musician, but he knew every rock and pop star from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And they were all saying to him, Mike, we've got loads of new material, but none of the radio stations will play it. They play our old hits, but they won't play the new stuff. So we put together Heritage Chart Radio, and then he put together Heritage Chart TV and the Heritage Chart. And suddenly he had 84 countries around the world, including Canada, voting. And you've got Boy George, Duran Duran, you've got Tony Hadley from Spandau Ballet, you've got Kim Wilde, everybody that was big in
Yeah.
the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Not so many 90s. I'm Flying the Flag, me and Chesney Hawkes. Do you remember the one and only? So basically, the chart just gone through the roof. 84 countries, even now, vote every week. There's a TV show. You can get it online. Lots of TV channels show it. And as I say, I was last Christmas. I released. You're gonna make me giggle. I released a new version, my version of Silent Night, Oh Holy Night. I put together Silent Night and Oh Holy Night with
That's
a great
clever.
guy.
Never thought of
With a
that.
great. Well, if you go on Spotify, Daniel James, it's on there. And you go on to my website, the video's on there. And with a lovely guy called Stuart Epps. And Stuart Epps is a producer, a musician, great guy, who, believe it or not, started working for Elton John's Rocket Records at age 16. Toured the
Wow.
world with Elton John. You should have him on
Incredible.
your show. He's a very talented man. Anyway,
Oh, you
the
know what?
guy.
He'll probably charge me $1 million for 10-minute podcast.
Well, I might give him your number. Anyway, then there was a
Nice.
guy called Paul. There's a guy called Paul Hirsch who played guitar and keys. Anyway,
Nice.
we put this together, and I released it last year. And in the Heritage Chart, 86 countries voted. Cher was number 1, and I was number 2. Now, if you're going to be behind anybody, you might as well be behind Cher. You know. So that's what I'm saying. If anybody doesn't know the Heritage Chart, check it out, www.heritagechart.co.uk. It's full of big star acts, even from the 70s, like Jethro Tull, Electric Light Orchestra, really ginormous acts like Duran Duran, like Coldplay, and like little old me, So I pinch myself because since lockdown, I had a number 1 with Do You Remember Me, which is also on the website.
Yeah.
There's the code.
There you go.
Set Your Spirit Free's on there. Silent Night, Oh Holy Night. Don't Want to Lose That Girl. All my tracks are on there that were hits on the Heritage Chat, and Promises on there. Do you know, I've recently shot the video for Promises, which is now called Promises. I don't know whether you can see this. Can you see the back of the t-shirt?
Running and running.
There you go. Because when I brought the record out, I put it on Spotify and stuff as Promises, but loads of running clubs and sports people were saying, we're downloading, we're wearing it when we're going out training. Running and running, I can't sleep. Running and running, make me weak. So they've done, and even listen to this, you're gonna laugh. A swimming club who were training, and I said, well, hang on a minute, how'd you sing along to that under the water? So they got it in their ears. So my Promises is now Promises Running and Running. People are playing it when they're working out, when they're running, when they're training, when they're swimming, when they're cycling. So I'm over the moon if people want to download it. It's on Spotify, iTunes, Deezer, Apple. It's on
We'll link
everywhere.
that down below. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I'm now in the Heritage Chart, and the video was going to be shot in the southeast of England. But like I told you, since January the 1st, we've had, I've had Noah's Ark. It's rained that much. I've had Noah's Ark pull up outside the door. So, excuse me. So we didn't get to shoot it. And I was thinking, what am I going to do? We're behind. We need the video. So then we were going to go to Dublin, bucketing down in Dublin. Then we were going to go to Gibraltar in Spain, bucketing down in Spain, unbelievably Spain, raining again. So in the end, we went to a northern city in the UK. Viewers, please go onto my website, www.thedanieljames.com. My video's on there, and you can also get a link to my YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. I would be over the moon.
Yes, definitely. I like
But
to subscribe to this channel too. But before you
yes,
continue, that promises video, can you send that to me and then I can play it at the end of the
oh
podcast?
wow, yes. I'm so sorry
Thank
you
you.
haven't got it. Yes, the big thing is it's only just been finished in the last 10
Okay.
days, and I would like your viewers to try and guess which city I filmed it in. But while I was there, I'm doing it, and these kids were there from Menorca in Spain, not Mallorca, but Menorca, lovely island in Spain, beautiful. And they were sitting having their lunch. They were on vacation or study from Spain. And I'm doing promises. Anyway, they start singing along. So I'm turning around and I said, do you want to join in? So when you watch the video, part of the video at the very end, I've got all these teenagers from Spain, from Menorca, promises, promises, running and run. Amazing. They heard it once. They knew the words better than I did. Unbelievable. So it's a really joyous, I'm running around this city and it's really joyous. So I think the point I'm trying to make is I've come full circle. I've had big success, terrible heartbreak,
Yeah.
but I've come back and now I'm more in control because I write the songs. I write the songs that make I write the
Very
songs
mellow.
and I find the producer that I work with. I've just done a fabulous ballad, although I say it myself. I've written a song, Wrap Your Arms Around Me, and I've co-produced it with a wonderful guy. There was a huge band in the 80s called the Corgis. Everyone's gotta learn sometime. They're still going now. They're on tour. They're big around the world. The Corgis. Well, one of their producer, Al Steele, lives in Wales. And I went down and I worked with him. And that'll be my summer single, this big ballad, uh, Wrap Your Arms Around Me. So onwards and upwards. Yes, I've been scarred. Yes, I've been kicked to the ground. But there's nothing. And people say to me about what's Promises about. And I say, well, it's about a couple that one of them kept letting the other down, and in the end, the one of them left and said, "I'm better on my own. I'm still
Mm.
standing tall," and it is. But I've realised it's also about me, and it's also about me saying, "I'm still standing tall." And I just want to say to everyone watching, whatever walk of life you're in, it doesn't happen to be the music business. You can be in an office, driving a truck, working in a shop, a store, a cafe, and you can be being bullied or undermined or belittled, or even in a
Wow.
relationship. And I just want to say, I've been there. Please don't do what I did, which is bottle it all up. Talk to somebody. In England, we've got something called the Samaritans. We've got something called Mind. I don't know what you've got in Canada or in other countries, but because sometimes it's hard to talk to your family. You see how upset it makes them, and they're too close sometimes. Sometimes
I,
families are great.
I
So
it just a lot of people have a hard time dealing with their mental health, and basically you were able to deal with your mental health, or else you would have probably, I don't want to say this, but unalived yourself, which probably
well, yeah,
had,
that was a thought in my head several
yeah.
times, because I had nowhere to turn. I felt I was so degraded. I was
Wow.
so small, and hurt so much, and there was no one. So I I got out of it. I don't know how, thank God. But what I'm
Thank
saying to
God.
anybody at home, I'm not the only one. And there are people worse off than me. People who graft from the crack of dawn till late at night for
Mhm.
pennies. People who've got kids to bring up, mothers, fathers to look after, or on their own and lonely. Please reach out to a stranger. Pick up the phone and speak to somebody. There's a great thing in England called Andy's Man's Club. And because the highest suicide rate in the UK are men of 35 and upwards. They're killing themselves.
Yeah.
So, guys, reach out. Don't be afraid. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yes.
Ladies, reach out. And that's what I want to do now is try and speak for the people that might be struggling at home or at work, and say, I've been there and I've got through it. You can get through it too.
My,
Promises.
wow. Yes,
Promises you can.
promises. Yes. I'm so happy they shared your story because you actually answered 16 of my questions all in one. So that's awesome. Uh-oh.
Well, I've saved you see, saved you time asking.
Please tell me you don't hear that.
I
Do
can
you hear
hear a
that?
buzzing. It sounds like a drone.
Yeah, it's drilling.
Ah, well, good
Anyway,
job.
but
You know what they're doing,
so
don't you? You know what they're doing? They're
I
drilling
know
and
exactly what
drilling.
they're doing, and I didn't think they were going to do it today. But anyway,
Listen,
but
we're nearly done, mate. It's been amazing talking to you. Look, promises, promises, running and running. They're drilling and drilling.
down
There
below,
you
everyone,
go. Drilling and drilling, drilling and
drilling,
drilling.
drilling,
Promises,
drilling,
promises, I can't
drilling, and
keep.
drilling.
Yeah, you could do the high
Promises,
harmony.
promises.
You can do the octave. Well, you could assign to Simon Cowell. He loves that.
Well, I don't know about Simon Cowell, but
Hey,
I'm
listen,
all
I
right.
wish him all
I'm
I
into
wish
you,
him
buddy.
all the goodness in the world. You move on and everything will be in the book. But I've got no malice. It's done. Move on and enjoy your life. Don't hold a grudge. The greatest thing I can do is have some success because it's basically saying that to the people that tried to crush me.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow, you're so happy that you were like the phoenix that you came out of the ashes, and
I'm
look where
still
you are
I'm still
now.
trying to climb. I'm not there yet. It's a work in progress, believe me. It's a work in
This
progress,
is
like it is for everybody.
this is like I want to drop the mic right here and just end the podcast, but
Yeah, we can do that, matey. To all your
you're still.
viewers and listeners, thank you for taking the time to watch.
You're welcome.
Please vote for Promises and please go to my website. And also, I'd love you to download the track. Also, I've got merch on sale and they go around the world. There's a great guy in your country called Harvey Brownstone, a Canadian. He was a judge.
Actually, he lives like 25 minutes from me. I know him
I'm going to tell you
personally, and I
something.
had him on my show. I had him on my show.
Harvey buys my merch. Harvey Brownstone from lovely Canada has my merch.
So
He bought it. I didn't send it to him for free. He bought it.
he had you on his podcast as well.
Yeah. Oh, about 2 years ago, when I first came out, about 2 years ago, when it was early days. He's a lovely, lovely man. But what I'm saying is the merch is available. We've got Set Your Spirit Free merch, which is poignant. We've got Silent Night, Oh Holy Night. We've got Promises. We've got tote bags. I mean, bands nowadays don't make money from selling records. You do know that, don't you? You get like minus a dime per track. So the way bands and artists make money now are live gigs and merch.
Yeah,
So
like
please,
Taylor Swift
please
when she did the Eras tour in Toronto, she made billions of dollars through just that 6 day tour herself.
and imagine the merch. If I was a dime behind her, I'd be over the moon.
Well,
Anyway, listen,
everyone,
matey.
it'll be linked down below it, and can you send me the link? Actually, I'm going to show that video of Promises Runnin' Runnin' at the end of the podcast. Can you send that to me and I will add it?
I promise I will have it sent to you within the next 24 hours.
I don't know what that's about, but I was actually I
Promises,
want to.
promises.
Yeah, but this was actually a great interview. You've
Well, thank you,
actually
sir.
This is excellent about your acting coordination speed. That's awesome.
I would
Uh,
love, hopefully I'll get to come to Canada at some time and sing live. That's the thing. I've
yeah.
re-recorded. I've re-recorded the Yell songs because I've got a charity gig. I mean, if there are any Canadians coming to England, Hampton Wick Yacht Club next Saturday, the 22nd. It's in aid of a blood cancer charity, the Anthony Nolan Trust. I'm doing a charity gig, and then on May the 4th, which is a Sunday, I'm doing Clitheroe Football Club, which is right near where your girlfriend's from in Lancashire, near Manchester. I'm playing Clitheroe Football Club on the 4th of May. If any Canadians are here, get yourself a ticket, come along. So I've re-recorded the Yell songs because if I'm going to sing them, I've got to sing them. And I'll be doing some of my material, plus a few classics from the 80s and 90s.
So do you own you own Yell? Because then you don't want Paul
Well, I
Varney or
came up
anybody to
with the
get in touch
name.
with
It was my
you.
baby,
Okay.
yeah. But I don't know whether I'll go out as Yell featuring Daniel James or just Daniel James. I haven't really decided yet.
Awesome. Awesome. This
All
is
right,
a great
matey.
episode. And I want to put this out early too. And
Yeah.
because I think there's a lot you have to say about mental health and just the lowest point. Everyone, like, we got to people got to deal with their mental health because many of them are offing themselves and they're not getting help, and you were alone, but look where you are now. This is amazing. You're inspiration, my friend.
If I can do it, anyone can do it. Please, if you're watching and you're in a low point, please pick up the phone and ask, just tell someone, tell you what, you know what, just telling someone something. And even if you just put the phone down, then you'd be amazed how for the next hour, how much better you feel. And then the next time you feel bad, pick up the phone again. That's what these organizations are there for. Get in the phone book, find your nearest organization. They can't see you. They're not going to judge you. They're just listening on the end of the phone, and they'll get you through to the next day. Sometimes it's just day to day. Sometimes it's week to week. Sometimes after a couple of months, you've come so far, you don't realize how far you've come. If I can do it, you can do it.
Secrets that you keep, secrets that you keep. I'm still standing tall, don't love you anymore. Running and running, I can't sleep. Running and running, feel so weak. Running and running at my door. Keep on running and running, don't love you anymore. I can keep a secret, writings on the wall. Every day you break it, don't love you anymore. Promises, promises, I can't keep. Promises, promises, makes me weak. Promises, promises, no more lies. Promises, promises, I'm still standing tall. I'm still standing tall, don't love you anymore. I'm still standing tall, don't love you anymore. I'm still standing tall. Running and running, I can't sleep. Running and running, feel so weak. You keep me running and running, play hide and seek. Keep running and running, don't love you anymore. I can keep a secret, writings on the wall. Every day you break it, don't love you anymore. You keep on still running and tall, don't love you anymore. From my door, you keep on running and running at my door. Don't love you anymore. I'm still standing tall. You keep on running and running, no more. Running and running from my door. You keep on running and running at my door. Promises, promises, I'm still standing tall. Promises, 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 I'm still standing tall.